What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Ol Drunken Geek, and today, the day has finally come where I get to review the movie that I watched last night, Avengers motherfucking Endgame. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button, all the stubs, do all the things. And yeah, spoilers, always spoilers, but in this occasion, I'm gonna start off with no spoilers for a little bit, and then I'll get into the spoilers because I can't even fucking talk about this movie, right, if you're not talking about spoilers, bro. Just like Infinity War, I feel like this movie was more an event than just a single film. In my humble opinion, I thought that this movie was even better than Infinity War because Infinity War set up everything that was paid off in this movie. Not only did Infinity War set that up, the whole 20-something films of Marvel over the last 11 or whatever years were set up for this one movie. Everything was paid off. Believe me, I can't get into more of that without hitting spoilers, but everything was paid off. Now, if this is your first Marvel movie and you go watch it, you're gonna think it's trash because it's 3 hours of things that you don't understand. But everything in this movie had a rhyme or reason. The pacing of this movie I thought was great as well. Some people complain that it's a little bit slow in the beginning. I didn't think that. I just think that we got all the action we needed to get in Infinity War. In this movie, it was more about the characters, man, to be honest. Not that Infinity War, within the action, it had a lot of character moments, but this one specifically begins with character moments and very important and poignant character moments. Then they take kind of a left turn with a lot of these characters where at first you're like, is it just to make people laugh, or is it just, why are they doing this? But within a few seconds, you really start to settle in like, yeah, that's a natural progression to, what would happen with these characters. If you think there's no action, that's where you're wrong, man, because this fucking movie is packed with action. The beginning maybe a little bit of a slower start, but it's fucking full of action, man. It's all the action. It's the best comic booky action I have ever seen of any movie ever. And this, I've only seen it once, but this could be argued is the best superhero movie ever made up to this point so far. The comedy worked a lot better than most Marvel movies. Most Marvel movies usually overdo it with the comedies. It wasn't that they didn't have that Marvel brand of comedy. It's just they did it at its best. They placed it in the most important places where it would get a laugh, but it didn't take you out of the movie. Like, cool, there has to be comedy because, that's how Marvel built their house, really. Even from the first Iron Man, there was comedy and there were moments of levity and stuff like that. And this movie, like I said, puts them in the right place, but then when it's time to get serious again, that's how real life is a lot of times. Sometimes even when serious shit is happening, your friends are making jokes, kind of like to get through that type of shit. Without further ado, that was my little spoiler-free review. I give this a glowing review. It's a great movie, good movie. If you've watched the all of Marvel, or even if you watch some of it, it's a good movie, and I recommend it. Now, moving on to what we're all here for. Spoilers! Yo, this movie was so off the chain. If you already knew the fucking Marvel backstory, man, they dug back all the way to fucking the first Avengers. They dug back to fucking Thor: The Dark World, which I didn't think anybody still cared about. But what I was mentioning before, man, about the character moments, all that resonance of what's been going on in Thor's life, you would think like, oh, he got fat. They made him sloppy. They made him the dude from The Big Lebowski or whatever. If anybody would turn into a fat alcoholic, it would be Thor. He's went through a lot of shit. I'm a fat alcoholic and I've gone through a lot less. Let's roll him out. He thought he killed his brother. He didn't. His mother died. He thought his brother died again, and he didn't. Then his father died, his sister came back, took his eye, then his brother died again, his girlfriend dumped him, he lost half of his people that he was in charge of, and then at the last moment when he thought he could have won, he went through all this shit to get the axe, then when he thought he won, he didn't, and then at the very end, when he had fucking Thanos there, after he couldn't do anything, they maybe could have pressed Thanos for information and he went and cut his head off out of impulse. Let's dissect that moment too for the time being. because I'm gonna go all over the place with this because I just started on the Thor rant, but Thanos, when they go to the planet where he's in his farm and shit, they all gang up and they go check him and shit like that. Thanos is talking to Nebula like, oh, I underestimated you, daughter. What resonated with me was like, Thor was so mad. Thor was so distraught at what had happened throughout the last 2 movies to him, through all his movies, his whole backstory, that he couldn't just let Thanos get that little bit of humanity in. Like, this might be his last moments. Let me have a moment with my daughter. Fuck all that. Cut your head off. And I feel like he was regretting that because it felt like they could have pressed him for more information. They could have done something about it. But Thor just, at that moment, snapped, you know, and got his revenge and stuff like that. That would turn somebody, a normal person, even though he's a god, but that would turn somebody into a fat, sloppy drunk. You know what I mean? Like, he's depressed. What are you gonna say about that? Now, they did play it for laughs, and it was hilarious. And I gotta say, when Thor Ragnarok came out, I watched that movie, and I didn't really like that movie, to be honest. Because I liked the first Thor, and I even liked Thor: The Dark World a lot, actually. I was like, Thor Ragnarok, man, they didn't have any stakes, man. They destroyed all of fucking Asgard, and they didn't even bat an eyelash. Yeah, now you're seeing the stakes, and that's what I've come to feel about Marvel now. It's like, you can really trust them. Because they really did take the story there. You know what I mean? Even though Thor Ragnarok felt like it had no stakes, whatever. Yeah, it helped reinvent Thor at that. And now there's this new comedic Thor that's still allowed to have the serious moments. Fuck it, I'm into it, man. And I thought Fat Thor was cool. I mean, he did in the movie try his best, and he did, in a way, redeem himself, you know? Also, that moment when he went back and talked to his mom, that was also one of the most beautiful moments in the movie. When she told him something like, I've only watched the movie once, like I said, so I don't remember, but she told him something like, everybody fails at being who they're supposed to be. The true measure of a hero is being the best at who you are. I think that was the line, actually. I think I got it pretty good. Yeah, man, that was very poignant, you know, death of his mother. I felt like he didn't have enough time to deal with that within the movies until now. Death of his father and stuff like that, you know, you got a little bit of that here and there. But yeah, man, that's the Thor arc was very satisfying, even though it felt like it was played for laughs. How the whole fucking movie started was wild, because you start, you know, like, oh man, we're Infinity War, how are they gonna turn it back now? Oh, this is gonna be the whole movie getting at Thanos, and they get at Thanos within, I think, like the first 15 minutes, bro. They come together, they fucking suit up, they fucking roll out, go get Thanos, and Thor does what he does, and then 5 years fucking later. And they even put those fucking, that title thing, slow, I think on purpose, so because people in the theater were like, fuck, 5? As soon as 5, you're like, 5 years later, fuck, they did it later, you know what I mean? That was a bold move on the Russo brothers, to be honest. They kind of fucking swung for the fences with that one. And then you got to see everybody struggle with something that, if half of the people you knew were gone, how would that affect the world? How would that affect you? They really delve deep with, especially with the Steve Rogers character and with the Natasha Romanoff character. I felt that you saw the impact the most through them. Oh, and the Hawkeye character in a way, but you know, the Hawkeye character he went off and became the Punisher. And not that you didn't feel it, but at the same time, it was like, okay, whatever. You're being melodramatic now at this point. But Natasha, like, she took over the leadership role in the Avengers, and Steve, he really didn't have the need to be the hero, Captain America throwing the shield anymore, but he became a hero in another way, being there for people, you know, having a support group and stuff like that, which speaks volumes of his character, which we will continue later. But just to sit on Natasha for a minute, Natasha and now Clinton Barton. I thought that their story arc was very, especially hers, man, it was heartbreaking. Because you don't realize that she's gone until the end of the movie. Because, you know, okay, she's at Vormir and they sacrifice her to get the Soul Stone, boom, you know. That whole scene, that whole interaction with Hawkeye right up there. Because, you know, she's always said, you know, I've got red in my ledger, you know. And, you know, she's done a lot of fucked up shit over her lifetime. She's now become this hero. She said, you know, I found my family now. You know, for a long time there was nothing, and now I have this. Like, you know, she feels like she's the odd man out in a way. Everybody else has their own family apart from her. People who's been in this for a little bit and people who knew a little bit of the comics knew about the snap and knew that like they were probably gonna bring him back with another snap and stuff like that. So you were expecting her to come back. It's not until I walked out of the movie theater that I was like, fuck. And fucking Milky reminded me, I was like, fuck, that's right. She never came back. She never, and that was heartbreaking. It actually depressed me a little bit on my drive home last night. It was like, fuck, man, that's it for her. And I can't wait to see the movie again because I felt like they did it justice with that scene. But while watching that scene, I thought it was like gratuitous. I'm like, whatever, she's gonna come back. You know, there's a Black Widow movie coming out. She'll be right back when they unsnap it. Watching it a second time, hopefully it'll be a little bit more ceremonious for me. Because it was a very sad moment, man. And shout out to those actors, even though their noses looked super funny. I don't know what the fuck happened to Clint Barton, tooting that shit because his nose got fucking just huge. Jeremy Renner, bro. He used to be a handsome man, but it was like Battle of the Noses that last scene. They were like, are they going Eskimo kiss? What the fuck is this? Also, it was really cool to see Natasha as the leader of the Avengers or what was left, And it was like an almost all-woman cast. It was like all women, one animal, and Okoye coming back, and she's, I guess, in charge of Wakanda. Captain Marvel doing her thing in space, Nebula, and then Rocket. And she was kind of like running it. Oh, and Rhodey was with them. That was like the last Avengers that were around, which I thought was pretty cool. It was just cool to watch her in that moment and watch her talk to Steve Rogers and tell him like, nah, we ain't done yet, bro. We gotta do something. And, and him being like, hey, there's whales back in, the Hudson River. And she's like, shut the fuck up. I'm going to hit you with this fucking sandwich. I just thought that whole scene was beautiful. There's a lot of those very small personal scenes within this movie that I really appreciated. Speaking of personal scenes, the scene where Tony Stark finally comes back to Earth. And, we saw him in space. That whole thing, he was out there with Nebula. That was pretty cool. But that scene when he finally comes back and he snaps on Captain, he's like, I've given everything, you weren't there. And fuck, man, I feel like he deserves an Oscar just for that scene. And that's arguably, to me, the best scene in the whole movie. Just like in Civil War, one of my favorite scenes was when Tony and Steve are having a back and forth and he gives them the pen. It's a very small scene, there's no action, but it just summed up the whole disparity between them, the whole conflict between them. In this scene, it was that times 3,000. But yeah, man, I think that scene deserved the fucking Oscar, dog. Like, that scene deserves an Oscar, and we'll see. I don't think the Academy's gonna give this movie any kind of like nods or anything. Now, moving on from Tony, I just mentioned Nebula, so let's go over Nebula. I'm gonna be like the Harvey Weinstein of this shit. I'm gonna just touch on all the Avengers. Nah, that's a horrible joke. Forgive me, internet. Nebula, you can tell the growth from Nebula through the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and even a little bit through Infinity War, just like all the characters, but you could really tell her and Rocket really grew as characters. Rocket is a lot more serious. He still jokes. They can still have the jokes. The fact that when it's time to get serious, they can be serious. And you could tell their character growth. Nebula is now openly working with other people. She's not like, I'm off on my own and I'll maybe help you. She's openly working with people, especially with Rocket. Their relationship also as Guardians, not as Guardians, but as Guardians of the Galaxy, was really sweet, man. They're like the last two Guardians left. When she finally came back to Earth with Tony, Rocket went up to her and held her hand. That was another beautiful scene. And also Nebula, you see her growth with her relationship with Gamora when she meets the past version of Gamora. Touching on Gamora now. Gamora, you see that she always had that goodness within her and stuff like that. She was always trying to make a change, just never had the opportunity until the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And in this occasion, we saw that in this timeline, which we'll talk about that in a bit. In this splintered timeline, she always had that within her. But let's go back to Rocket. I thought one very important moment that really displays his growth as a character was when he was talking to Captain Marvel. He was like, yeah, we're dealing with this stuff on Earth. Where were you? And she was like, that snap that happened on Earth? Yeah, that happened all across the galaxy, all across the universe, and I gotta deal with it. He's like, yeah, you're right. That's a fair point. Past Rocket, I feel like would have been a dick about it. I'm like, yeah, you say that, whatever. This Rocket feels like, yeah, he still has the little quippy jokes, a little assholeness about him. That's just part of his personality. But he does have that character growth. It's like, you know what? You're right. I'm being an asshole. Sorry. That I thought was really, really cool. And the fact that, there was really cool moments with everybody. Like Tony and Rocket, Rocket tells Tony, like, you're only a genius, you're on Earth, right? I just thought all that stuff was really, really, really cool. Moving on to other characters, the Hulk was a surprise. I don't know, again, another character that you thought like, man, this is a joke. And then he explains it, because you see him, you're like, eh. But then he explains it, and he tells you, I was treating the Hulk like a disease. He's no longer Banner or the Hulk. He's kind of like an amalgamation of both, and it was cool. I accepted it. The more we saw him, the less jarring it was. Because when you first saw him in that cafe scene and he dabs and all that stuff, you're like, this is a little much. I don't know how I feel about this. But it's Professor Hulk, dog. It's Professor Hulk. Even though he's a little too sensitive, Mark Ruffalo, in there. Like I wish he would have been more like, a little bit more Hulk, just my opinion. There were moments even in the end when he does the snap and he's like, I tried, man, I tried to get Nat. That's why his arm was so fucked up. Going back to Thor just for like a split second, when Thor was like, come on, you've got to let me do this, let me do something. Thor, even to the end, still felt like he hadn't done quite enough, which is like, the sign of a good hero. Just like Captain, just like Tony. Everybody, when presented with the chance to do more, did step up. Even Tony was like I'm not even on speaking terms with half you motherfuckers. And then when they told him, he's like, whatever. But then he goes back and works on the time machine. Everybody stepped up. And I just thought, like I keep saying it, man, those small moments, that's what matters in this movie. But going back to the Hulk, yeah, man, I thought it was a cool progression of the character, and they set it up pretty well in Ragnarok and Infinity War. And now you know why they did those things. He was not my favorite character in the movie, even though I tend to like Hulk more than most, Marvel characters in the MCU. Not my favorite, but still, I think he did a great job. I think Professor Hulk is something everybody's been wanting to see. Now, if they could just, in future movies, give us World Breaker Hulk. Oh, yeah, that's what we want to see. And don't fucking tell me that Thor Ragnarok Hulk was World Breaker Hulk, because he just looked like World Breaker Hulk, bitch. You don't even know. Talking about some lesser characters in the movie, characters that were in the movie and did have an impact, but I feel like did not have that much of a character impact because we either don't know them as well or their stakes didn't feel as much, you know what I mean? Where Ant-Man, who his daughter's still alive, so there goes that. You're like, his daughter's alive, he already winning. But, he lost some people he loved. Obviously, everybody did, but he wanted to undo it because he was stuck in the quantum realm. I thought he was in there just enough. I could have done with maybe a little bit less Ant-Man, but for the most part, I didn't have a problem with. The one that was a little bit was Captain Marvel, because a movie and a half later, we still don't really know who she is. And they played her like she's this overpowered. It was hard to connect with her. I don't know her. And to me, every time she was on, she took up screen time for characters that I already care about. And that's what made me kind of like sour on her. I'm not like a woman-hating prick, but call it what it is. That was not done well, in my opinion. Now let's talk about time and time travel, because this shit was hella timey-wimey. And it was, to be honest, it was a plot device that really moved the story along, and it was integral to the movie. But at the same time, it did cause a couple of problems with me, bro. It got a little complicated and confusing. What they did was they went back to the past to take the Infinity Stones from different points in time, right? Boom. Okay, cool. They did that. Not an issue. They were gonna put them back so that the timeline would not be affected, right? They said that changing the past would not change their future, which is fine, but it would change their past, possibly, right? So, okay, all right, so let's make it a timeline, right? This is where they have to do all this shit. This is the present. This is where they have to do all of that Infinity Stone grabbing stuff. This is all the other stuff, right? So, yeah, if you change that, your future is still this, right? But there's this part of the past that I don't understand, because there's a couple incongruencies, like Captain America, spoiler alert, Captain America staying. So he had to live his whole life while there was a younger Captain America running around. He had to not change the fact that Hydra took over S.H.I.E.L.D., stuff like that, knowing that Bucky is frozen in ice. Did he live his whole life without being Captain America and just not helped at all? Or are they in a new timeline where, you know, he changed it a lot of shit? And if that's the case, how come that different past has not affected them? And if he created a new branch, a new timeline, right, separate from the one that we have, right, a new timeline, boom, if he's in that timeline, wouldn't he live in that timeline now? How did he get back to this timeline to be in the present? That's what really fucked with me. Also, same thing goes with Loki. Now they changed Loki's stories because when he got, you know, the cube, he grabbed it and he dipped. He was out of that bitch. It's stuff like that that kind of confused me a little bit. But now I've learned to trust Marvel enough that I feel like this is all gonna be explained away later. Like it's gonna come back and bite them in the ass somehow. Or in their Disney Plus shows, they're gonna explain it because there's a Loki show coming out now. So maybe they're gonna explain it away. And at this point, I've got enough faith in Marvel where that's beside the point. Because I don't really care. Somehow, some way, whatever. Time travel, timey-wimey. Even though it caused some problems, fuck it, I forgive them. And before I finish the review, I just want to talk on a couple of other little things before we get to the last 2 points, which we know what are going to be the last 2 points, man. But let's talk about Thanos, which was, to me, even scarier and more thug life than the Thanos in Infinity War. Infinity War, he was like fucking Goose Fraba. He was like fucking centered, bro. He was ready to do his shit. Then when he started getting Infinity Stones, he took off his fucking armor. He was like, you know, I'll fuck with you like this, boom, boom, boom. Oh, I got all my shit together. Bow! Gotcha. Right? In this one, he felt a little bit more desperate. He didn't even have one stone. And now he knows even if when he succeeds, he's gonna get killed and they're gonna try to run the clock back. So now he's changing his plan. Now snapping half the universe ain't even what he's after. Now he wants to destroy the whole fucking universe. That to me was scarier. And him coming out, boy, two-piecing people with the little spear, Darth Maul shit, out of control. That's the other thing I wanted to touch on. Man, that last action scene, bro. They paid off the fucking hammer, Captain America and the hammer. And they did one of the things, Avengers assemble, like fucking, we've been waiting for years for them to say that shit. And I bet money that the next movie is gonna be called Avengers Assemble. I don't give a fuck. They used that already. Boom, next movie, Avengers Assemble. But neither here or there. You know, the lot he was using that fucking hammer, boom, bang that against his shield. Fucking the shield broken from Age of Ultron, the vision that Tony got. It finally happened. All that shit, man, was just like payoff. And that was the best comic booky battle ever in any movie ever. Bro, like there's nothing that comes even close. Maybe the Civil War, maybe Into the Spider-Verse, maybe a couple of those are close. Nothing like this though. In every event, be it Crisis on Infinite Earths, Secret Wars, it all ends or at some point has this giant fucking, every hero you know comes out and fucking fights the boss, right? And that's exactly what the fuck happened, and we got to see it, goddammit. And the hammer, man, he fucking grabbed the hammer. And then Thor was like, doom, 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 with both hammers, and he gave him the hammer. He's like, you take the little one. Oh, man, it was just like the biggest fucking geek-gasm any geek, nerd, Marvel fan could have had. Which, by the way, this movie series has turned America, or the world, into basically comic book fans in a way. This is what comic book fans were enjoying for the longest, man. We were like, you buy one book, and you read this other thing, and you read it, and then the tie-in, and then the big event. It's like the big, you know, cum shot of the fucking everything that had been building for like 2-3 years. That's exactly what this was, just on a cinematic scale, and that you can love and appreciate. It was just, man. What can you say, bro? What can you say? What else can you say? What else can you do? What else can these movies do for fucking people, man? They've given you, a comic book fan, it's given me everything I've wanted to see. And now, we are at the end of the review. We're gonna have to talk about two things. Let's start with Tony Stark. Jesus fucking Christ, man. I didn't know it was gonna happen like that. To be honest, I thought it was gonna be Cap. I was not hoping, but I thought it was gonna be Cap. Because we know that Chris Evans is no longer gonna be in the movies. So I thought it was like, yeah, Cap's gonna die. But I thought it was gonna be very unceremoniously, like shot in the head, like after Civil War or something like that, or during the battle or something. Well, it's not like that, man. It was Tony in the most poignant way it could have happened. I am Iron Man. You saw what the snap did to Thanos. You saw what the snap did to Hulk. Those are basically, you know, like Omega level motherfuckers. Tony just got, you know, he had a good armor on, but you knew he was dead. As soon as he did it, boom, he felt it. And it was, you know, it was a tearjerker. I didn't cry because I ain't no bitch, but, you know, had it caught me in a different mood, I would have been full. I would have went full bitch. I would have been, I was in a more or less good mood yesterday, you know. But that shit was a tearjerker, bro. Like, Tony got all the development throughout these movies. We started with Tony, and we got to see him be the cocky Iron Man, be the drunk Iron Man. Then we got to see him be the, I want to protect the world Iron Man. Oh shit, but I forgot. But let's do the, you know, Sokovia Accords, all that. And it was all paid off. Like I said, that beginning scene in the movie, with him just snapping at Captain America, you know, that was one of the best scenes. But then we got to see him with his daughter, have a family, get, you know, the end game that they always went for with him, you know, him on the farm. He at least got 5 years of that, which was, you know, it was beautiful, and that's what made it even more painful to see him go. He got to say goodbye to Rhodey, then he got to say goodbye to Peter. Also, he got the scene with his father. He got to resolve his father issues, which then translated into Peter. It was like a, you know, like a handing of the baton in a way, but also like closure for his story arc. You know, he went through that scene with his father when he went into the past. Howard Stark, you know, he always had a tumultuous relationship with him, and now he finally got to tell him thank you for everything and all that jazz, and really get closure for himself. And after getting that closure for himself, when he saw Peter again, when they all come back, he was able to give him a hug. Because, you know, even before, he was like, that was not a hug, I'm just reaching for the door. You know, we saw that in Homecoming and stuff like that. But now we saw him really, truly embrace who he is, really embrace his demons, and really face them head on. And without an armor, without a metaphorical armor in a way. You know, and then he got to say goodbye to Pepper Potts. We all knew was coming, and that was a beautiful scene too. When Gwyneth Paltrow goes down and she's like, it'll all be fine. We'll be fine. Just rest. Then he dies. And then she fucking just starts bawling and shit. The whole funeral scene was clearly, obviously, just very sad, but it was beautiful, man. RDJ's still alive. It's not like he died for real. But, you know, this is what art does. It does make you tap into your feels, and that's what this movie did. But to leave it on a higher note, on a happier note, the whole thing with fucking Captain, man, to this day, I still feel, have you ever, like, had regret about not doing something, and just, like, years later you think, damn, bro, shit might have been different if I did that. That's how the end of Captain America, the First Avenger, was. He had found the love of his life, and now he's got to go through this. He has to see her old now. You know, he couldn't really be with her. And for all we know, he was a virgin, because he said, you know, I've never danced, you know, I've never danced. So he was a virgin till fucking probably even after Civil War, because he never hooked up with her niece, thank God. You know, it was just like, he felt like he was never really a whole man. He always had that kind of looming over him. Like, he was just a man out of time, and he never fit in. He never got a life, like Tony said. And to finally see him get that conclusion and get that last of it, that was beautiful. I didn't know that was going to be paid off from fucking First Avenger to now. This was something that, like, in our lifetimes, I don't think it's going to happen again. Yeah, man, this movie hit you in the feels. Great fucking movie. If you stuck around for this whole fucking video, you just wanted to hear all the stuff you were already thinking about, because that's what we've all been thinking about. That's what we've all been feeling. So, from me to you, fucking, this is the end of an era, and I can't wait till the next movie, man. I'm not a huge Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe fan. Like, that Peter's not my Peter. Not my Peter. I'm more excited about that movie than I was before, because it's like, where is this universe going to now? And I can't wait for the shows to come on the streaming service, because I feel like all those incongruencies with, like, Captain and Loki and all that stuff, this is all gonna get cleared up. Here we are, guys. The end of an era, beginning of a new era. And it's been sweet, man. Love this movie. hit subscribe, hit the like button if you like this video. Check us out on Instagram, dropping loads, Ol Drunken Geek. And that's all I got for you guys today, man. ODG out.
What is that face?